Do you believe that, even in an era when humanity has set foot on the moon and mapped nearly every corner of Earth, a massive machine, weighing over 200 tons and carrying almost 240 people, could vanish completely, leaving not even a single signal or clear trace in the sky? The story you're about to hear is not a legend, not science fiction. It is one of the real mysteries that shook modern aviation, the disappearance of Flight MH370. On the night of March 7, 2014, at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia, the entire terminal glowed with that soft amber hue unique to late-night airports, rows of metal seats, the steady echo of announcements, a few passengers nodding off. In that quiet air, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was being prepared for a night journey of more than 6 hours to Beijing, China. A Boeing 777-200 stood outside the window, white fuselage, blue trim, the Malaysian flag on its tail, a giant of steel, hailed as one of the world's safest wide-body jets, 2 powerful engines, a range of more than 10.000 kilometers, equipped with advanced navigation and communication systems. A total of 239 people were on that night flight, 227 passengers and 12 crew members, coming from many countries: China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, India, and several European nations. It was a colorful, ordinary flight like countless others. No one imagined that only a few hours later it would become one of the greatest enigmas in human history. In the cockpit, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53, was running the final checks, a veteran pilot with more than 18,000 flight hours, respected by colleagues and beloved by trainees. Beside him sat First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, 27, young, eager, newly certified on the Boeing 777. They exchanged a few light words, reviewed the takeoff checklist, then contacted air traffic control. At 12:41 a.m., the nearly 230-ton aircraft trembled, eased onto runway 32R, and its engines rose to a deep roar in the stillness of the night. Second by second, speed built, then, in a breath, it surged into the Kuala Lumpur night sky, carrying 239 people toward Beijing. In the cabin, the lights were dim and gentle. A few passengers reclined, slipped on headphones, and drifted into light sleep. Outside, a thin veil of cloud, moonlight shimmered across steel wings. The flight was entirely normal. Control received steady signals. The aircraft reached 35.000 feet, just over 10.000 meters. Everything ran smoothly, calmly, without the slightest sign of trouble. Then, at 1:19 a.m., Captain Zahari contacted control one last time. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Good night, MH370. It was a simple, quiet farewell, and no one realized it would be the last words the world would ever hear from MH370. Only 2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the aircraft's transponder, the device that identifies and shares flight data with ground radar, unexpectedly ceased transmitting. On radar screens, the symbol for MH370 disappeared. No emergency signal. No distress call. No sign of anything unusual. It simply vanished. At first, controllers thought it was a technical hiccup. Civilian radar can occasionally drop signals, especially during handoffs between airspaces. But minutes passed, then tens of minutes. They made radio calls again and again. No reply. The aircraft seemed to have fallen into a void. At 1:38 a.m., Vietnam's Area Control Center, responsible for the southern portion of the South China Sea, attempted contact. "Malaysia 370, do you read?" Silence. They tried again. Still nothing. By 2:40 a.m., Malaysia's military radar detected an unidentified target, roughly the size of a 777, turning back from its original course, crossing the Malaysian peninsula, then fading from view as it approached the Andaman Sea. By all indications, that object was MH370. The next morning, urgent bulletins flashed worldwide. Flight MH370 lost contact. Presumed missing. The news hit like a storm. Major outlets ran red banner headlines. Families waiting in Beijing were first told the flight was delayed. Then, out of contact. Then, location unconfirmed. Uncertainty spread across the globe. Hundreds wept in the arrival hall. In Malaysia, authorities launched a search effort unlike any before. 26 nations joined in. Dozens of military aircraft, patrol planes, and naval ships, along with thousands of responders, were deployed. The search area stretched from the South China Sea, across the Gulf of Thailand, all the way to the far reaches of the Indian Ocean. Every radar, every detection device was brought to bear. But the sea stayed silent. No signals, no debris, no sheen of fuel or flotsam. As if MH370 had never existed. 4 days later, on March 12, 2014, Malaysia's Ministry of Defense announced a stunning development. Their military radar had tracked MH370 flying for another 7 hours after it vanished from civilian screens. The aircraft had reversed course by 180 degrees, crossed the Strait of Malacca, then headed northwest toward the Indian Ocean. According to the data, it continued until fuel exhaustion, and only then did all traces end. A deeper mystery emerged. Why did the aircraft turn back? Why did all communication stop at once? And if it was an onboard issue, why was no emergency call made? No one had an answer. Satellite data revealed that MH370 continued to handshake with an Inmarsat satellite, extremely faint exchanges. Almost like the aircraft's final heartbeats. Every hour, a ping confirmed the onboard terminal was still alive somewhere offshore. 7 pings in total, the last, at 8:19 a.m., suggested the aircraft had reached the end of its fuel. From complex calculations of distance and timing, investigators reconstructed a vast arc spanning thousands of kilometers across the Indian Ocean. Somewhere along that arc, they believed, MH370 had come to rest. But exactly where? In waters nearly 4.000 meters deep. No one knew. Searches continued. For months, unmanned submersibles combed swaths of seabed. Sonar mapped square meter after square meter. Top experts from Australia, the UK, the US, China, and beyond joined forces. The result? Nothing. No trace. No pings from recorders. No large fragments. The Indian Ocean remained flat, deep, and inscrutable, as if swallowing every answer. Then, more than a year later, something strange happened. On July 29, 2015, on Réunion Island, a small dot in the Indian Ocean east of Madagascar, a local resident found a flaperon nearly 3 meters long washed ashore. Investigators arrived, examined every detail, and confirmed it was a component from a Boeing 777 consistent with MH370. It was the first, at that moment, the only, tangible proof that MH370 had ended its journey somewhere in the vast ocean. Later, additional small pieces, sections of fuselage, control surfaces, engine covering, were found along the East African coast, but the main fuselage and the 2 flight recorders remained missing. Speculation multiplied. Some experts argued the aircraft suffered a technical event, perhaps electrical issues or a lithium battery thermal incident in the cargo hold. Before departure, MH370 was documented to be carrying over 200 kilograms of lithium batteries, a material that can heat rapidly under pressure or impact. If something happened, the pilots might have shut down primary power to isolate the affected area, accidentally cutting off communications as well. They could have turned back to attempt an emergency landing, but lost control amid low oxygen. If the crew became incapacitated, the aircraft could have continued on autopilot until fuel depletion. It was a cold, plausible scenario, among the most widely supported by specialists. Yet not everyone agreed. Some argued MH370 could not have been a simple onboard issue. Its track, precise turns, controlled altitudes, steady speed, suggested a human hand. Thus another theory emerged. Perhaps a pilot intentionally redirected the aircraft. But why? Some said he wanted to pass over his hometown of Penang for one last look. Others believed he aimed for a remote region to keep something hidden. There were even suggestions of personal pressures or domestic politics. All of it remained conjecture, without conclusive evidence. Meanwhile, technical analysts noted a disturbing coincidence. Before the disappearance, 2 passengers used false passports. Both were Iranian nationals traveling on Italian and Austrian documents. What was their true purpose? No one knew. The detail deepened the haze. Certain intelligence assessments even floated the idea that outside actors might have taken control and moved the aircraft to a concealed location. No proof emerged, but the notion lingered like a shadow. When science couldn't fully satisfy, imagination went further. Some proposed that MH370 slipped into a peculiar spatial zone where time and coordinates stopped behaving normally, a gray area between reality and the cosmos where signals vanish and humans cannot reach. It sounds implausible, but in a world short on answers, every possibility seems conceivable. In the days that followed, the world thirsted for information. Every headline, every bulletin asked the same question: where is MH370? Emergency meetings brought Malaysia, China, Australia, and the United States to the same table. Maps of potential tracks covered investigation rooms. Red lines spider-webbed the charts. Tiny dots marked those rare satellite pings. The longer people stared, the more they saw conjecture floating in a fog of uncertainty. Over time, public doubt grew. Was something being withheld? Some data, after all, can be known only to the military or intelligence services. For example, the military radar turnback wasn't disclosed immediately, fueling suspicion. Why keep it quiet? Did the jet enter sensitive airspace? Such questions pushed the case beyond aviation into geopolitics. Scientists persisted. An international team led by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, reanalyzed the Inmarsat signals, the only thread left. Those faint pings were likened to the ocean's last faint echo, each one an hour apart. By comparing signal timing against satellite geometry, they drew a sweeping curve, the seventh arc. All data indicated the journey likely ended in the southern Indian Ocean, thousands of kilometers off Australia's coast. But when search vessels reached those waters, they found only cold depths. No signals, no sound, no sonar reflections, just a black, silent realm like a moonlit desert beneath the waves. As mathematics and coordinates marched on, theories bloomed across the globe, from plausible to extraordinary. One early idea focused on lithium battery heating. The cargo manifest listed 221 kilograms of lithium-ion cells, a material used in electronics, highly sensitive to heat. A single faulty cell could generate heat, smoke, and damage circuits. The hypothesis: after detecting smoke, the pilots cut power to isolate the source, then turned back for an emergency landing. Power down, unintentionally silenced transponder, radar replies, and radios at once. In smoky, low oxygen conditions, crew performance could have degraded. The aircraft then flew under autopilot for hours until fuel exhaustion. It fit known cases, yet questions persisted. If there was smoke, why no emergency alert? How did the flight hold altitude and heading for so long? There was no definitive answer. A second idea unsettled people worldwide. What if MH370 wasn't a systems issue at all, but human-directed? With radar-documented reversals, steady altitudes, and deliberate changes, many experts believed someone in the cockpit made those adjustments. Who, and why? Media attention turned to Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, the only person with full authority over systems, including switching off the transponder and disabling satellite calls. Investigations described him as dedicated, warm, and stable, yet one detail stood out. Prior to the flight, he had practiced a route on a home simulator, also trending south into the Indian Ocean. Coincidence, or something more? The airline called it routine training for a seasoned aviator. To the public, the detail was troubling. Some speculated he had a plan to move the aircraft beyond radar coverage and let it fade into silence. No evidence proved that. Family and colleagues insisted he was cheerful, devoted, and had no reason for drastic action. Another line took on a political tint. Certain local sources said the captain supported an opposition movement during a tense period. Perhaps, they said, he intended a symbolic act, a protest. But again, it remained rumor, never officially substantiated. A separate inquiry focused on the 2 Iranian passengers with false passports. Initially, they drew suspicion. Later, Interpol determined they were irregular migrants trying to reach Europe. With that, one thread of speculation quieted, but the larger puzzle only grew. Years later, when the official search paused, oddities continued to surface. Researchers noted that recorders, if underwater, can emit locator signals for about 40 days. Yet in that window, no clear underwater pings were confirmed, only faint, Ambiguous sounds off Western Australia. Insufficient for certainty. Some scientists said these were likely natural seabed noises. Others felt they might have been MH370's last traces. If so, why were the signals so faint? Were the recorders too deep, beyond detection, or had some system been interrupted? No consensus emerged. With fewer answers, more rumors arose. One independent group suggested a mishap during an international military drill, noting the timing overlapped with live fire exercises in the region. In their telling, a radar misread could have led to a tragic accident, later hushed to avoid diplomatic crisis. Involved governments firmly rejected this. Still, the story persisted online for years. Another line, corporate and uncanny, captured imaginations. 4 Chinese engineers on board, employed by Freescale Semiconductor, were co-owners of a patent for ultra-thin materials with game-changing potential. If co-owners were no longer present, patent rights could consolidate under the company, itself linked to a very large financial entity. Many called it mere coincidence, others thought it too neat not to question. With no evidence either way, the tale drifted like a long shadow. When conventional explanations ran dry, more unusual doors opened. Some believed MH370 traversed a rare atmospheric window, what scientists might call a time-space anomaly, bending signals until they faded. Others suggested the aircraft didn't fall but simply exists elsewhere for now, in another layer of reality, returning only when that door reopens. Outlandish? Perhaps, but history knows of vessels and aircraft that vanished at sea, only to be found decades later under circumstances that stunned investigators. MH370, too, might be part of a tapestry we don't yet know how to read. Search waves started and stopped, across the Indian Ocean, along East African shores, down to waters south of Australia. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent, thousands of people took part. The world received, in return, silence. Still, no one truly gave up, not only for the 239 who went missing, but because this case had become a symbol of the limits of human understanding, a reminder that despite satellites, radar, and artificial intelligence, some things resist control. Amid theories, debate, and unanswered riddles, one truth aches most: the people who wait. For years, hundreds of families have kept a fragile hope that, somewhere, MH370 still exists, that perhaps they're simply waiting to be found. Many return to Kuala Lumpur's airport each March 7th, bringing flowers, letters, and photos. Some children grew up without ever seeing their parents, still asking with simple innocence, "When will mom and dad come home?" If you ask what feels most daunting about MH370, it's not the vanishing, it's the quiet that followed for more than a decade. The ocean's quiet, technology's quiet, the quiet in the hearts of those who cannot accept that the journey ended. The ocean is never easy to read, especially the southern Indian Ocean, where MH370 is believed to have stopped. Cold winds shear the surface, deep currents spiral, swallowing whatever sinks. Even the most advanced gear seems small beside nature's vastness. As some experts from Australia, the United States, and the UK put it, finding an aircraft on the floor of the Indian Ocean is like searching for a single car in a desert 10 times the size of France. Human beings, though, resist surrender. After the Flaperon appeared on Réunion, searches expanded. More than 120,000 square kilometers of seabed were scanned with sonar, autonomous underwater vehicles, and deep diving robots. Each new map marked thousands of targets, then struck them off, then marked more. For months, survey ships found only rock, sand, and darkness. The world began to realize the sea can keep a secret better than any vault. In 2017, after 3 relentless years, the official search paused. Malaysia said there was no longer sufficient scientific basis to continue. Costs had exceeded $150 million, with hundreds of thousands of work hours from dozens of countries. MH370 remained a name without coordinates, without images, without reply. The world sighed. A year later, a private company, Ocean Infinity, announced it would try again, not for reward, but to bring closure to aviation's greatest open question. With a modern fleet and robots capable of diving to 6,000 meters, they spent over 90 days sweeping areas never before searched. In the blackness below, their instruments cast faint blue beams across rock shelves and trenches, then vanished. The result? Still nothing. No recorders, no fuselage, no answer. Yet they gave something precious, proof that people had not given up. During those years, scientists kept parsing the last satellite data from Inmarsat. Mathematical models hinted at a key detail. In its final minutes, MH370's descent rate increased, suggesting a steep angle into the water rather than a level glide. A computer reconstruction proposed that after fuel ran out, the left engine quit, then the right, the aircraft banked, lost balance, and descended. Impact speed may have been high. If so, the fuselage could have fragmented into countless smaller pieces, some floating briefly, most sinking, and that would explain why shorelines only yielded small, weathered remains. Still, curiosity led elsewhere. Some independent researchers doubted a purely technical cause. Global satellite and military radar, they argued, could not have all been blind at once. Something must have actively reduced detectability, either from inside the aircraft or by actors capable of influencing space-based tracking. A bold theory formed. The aircraft's systems were deliberately minimized to evade detection. To what end, no one knows, but satellite geometry shows the flight transited near sensitive airspace in Southeast Asia, a fact that keeps the theory alive. Defense tech insiders have occasionally hinted that, in certain scenarios, a large civil jet could be redirected or even supervised remotely. Such notions, by nature, are classified and publicly unconfirmed. The question hangs: could MH370 have been guided rather than self-flown? Witness accounts added intrigue. Residents on the Maldives reported seeing a large aircraft flying low at dawn, with a heavy, droning sound, heading south into the Indian Ocean. Local authorities checked. No scheduled flight matched. Was that MH370 on its final leg? If so, it traveled far beyond its planned path. But why? Who set that course? Questions multiplied. Answers did not. Aviation psychologists say that whichever explanation proves true, each scenario reflects something about our modern condition. We believe we understand our machines, believe everything is under control, yet a single unforeseen event, a single wrong decision, can cascade through the system. In a way, MH370 symbolizes the fragile seam between people and technology. Other unusual claims surfaced. Some analysts examined odd electronic messages reportedly received after the disappearance, strings of characters resembling coordinates that, when plotted, pointed toward waters near Malaysia. The origin of these messages is unclear. Specialists largely consider them coincidences or user-generated artifacts. Still, in a realm of unproven things, believers remain. There were even tales of unusual radio spikes detected by international observatories at the time contact was lost, brief and faint. Some said it was a reflection from satellite equipment passing through dense atmospheric layers. Others thought it hinted at something not of Earth. Science has never validated this, but curiosity thrives on such hints. Online, videos, articles, and analyses proliferated, ranging from classified technology to theories of non-human energy, braiding into a labyrinth of mystery. Amid the noise, one fact stands: the Boeing 777 truly existed, truly lifted into the night, truly carried 239 people, and now no one knows where they are. That is not just a story of technology, it is the sorrow of those left behind. In 2016, families established Voice 370 in Kuala Lumpur. Photos, letters, quiet notes covered the walls. Some messages were only 2 lines. We are still waiting. If you can hear us, please come home. Each March 7th, candles are lit, names are read, silence does the rest. No one says, the end, because many believe a chance, however small, still remains. To the wider world, MH370 stands as a testament to the boundaries of modern knowledge, a reminder that, even with global satellite coverage, there are places we cannot reach and questions that may outlast us. Many films, books, and documentaries have since appeared, some scientific, some psychological, some speculative, but all agree on one point: MH370 didn't just vanish from radar, it slipped beyond our usual logic. That is why it lingers. Some experts think that if the aircraft is ever found, it may not be intact. Time, pressure, and cold sea could have erased much. What remains may be metal canvassed with sea life, telling its story in silence. Others believe that even without a discovery, MH370 leaves a lesson. When we start to believe we fully grasp the universe gently proves otherwise. The ocean keeps its secrets. Somewhere under those waves, part of MH370 may lie, thousands of meters down, waiting. Or perhaps it will never be found. Yet every time someone lifts into a night sky and wingtip lights blink in the dark, people remember this story, an ordinary flight that vanished into the air, leaving millions of questions. Over the years, the theories haven't stopped. As one path closes, another opens, blurrier, more complex, sometimes unsettling. Technical scenarios may comfort us by suggesting misfortune. The political and power-laden ones make the tale feel stranger than any movie. One sensitive idea claims MH370 wasn't lost to systems trouble but intentionally removed from screens. Unofficial accounts say the region hosted significant military activity, including trials of defensive radar. If the jet crossed that space, its visibility might have been reduced. A former controller once said, "There are places where civilian radar simply cannot see, either shadowed or jammed. When an object enters, it can appear to vanish. Without proof, it remains a blind spot theory, an area where discovery becomes nearly impossible." More assertive voices have suggested intelligence tensions among major powers. They point to the cargo, 11 tons in all, including a portion listed as unspecified electronic equipment. Some reports speculated about restricted components. If so, perhaps the flight became entangled in a covert interdiction. No official record confirms this, and Malaysia stated the cargo was lawful, but ambiguity fuels doubt. Another rumor spoke of a forced landing at a remote site in Asia or the Middle East, coordinates even cited near the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Known for hidden facilities, in that telling, the aircraft was retained for undisclosed reasons. A media outlet once quoted an unnamed source claiming the jet was still there, concealed along with those on board. No state has confirmed such a claim, no evidence has surfaced. Yet in the world of mysteries, absence of proof does not always erase possibility. A darker corporate-style theory ties back to Freescale's team, 20 engineers aboard. 4 named on a pending U.S. patent related to ultra-thin, high-efficiency materials, graphene. By statute, if co-owners are no longer present, rights can consolidate to the company, ultimately connected to a vast financial group. Many see coincidence, some see orchestration. It cannot be proven, but the alignment of facts invites questions. Whispers of cyber intrusion also linger. Some say modern jets include remote assistance features for emergencies, rarely publicized. If an unauthorized party accessed such a system, they could fly without touching the yoke. Experts insist protections are formidable. Still, in a digital era where data breaches are common, impossible feels less absolute. Others offer a more human reading: coordination errors during an international drill, a misread radar return, a civil aircraft mistaken for a training target, a subsequent diplomatic hush. No confirmations, just a caution. National secrets can sometimes bury truths. Before 2014, most believed every airliner was monitored from takeoff to landing. After MH370, that belief cracked. Regulators moved to require satellite-based tracking that persists even if main power is cut. For MH370, the change came too late. A decade has passed. Waves still lap Réunion's shore. New fragments occasionally reach Africa and Madagascar. Each discovery rekindles hope, then fades. Scientists say that if currents carried pieces that far, the main structure likely rests in the far south of the Indian Ocean, too deep, too hazardous, too costly for a single nation to search thoroughly. Thus, the official hunt has closed, while the mystery remains. Like the ocean itself, the more you look, the deeper it gets. At the end of every thread, a final question tugs. Have we perhaps seen MH370 without knowing it? Over the years, countless radar blips, fishermen's calls, pilot reports, and satellite notes have mentioned unusual objects over the Indian Ocean. None confirmed, yet sometimes, in the night at sea, a light flashes, and people wonder, is that MH370 trying to find its way home? This story may never have a final chapter, but it leaves humanity a timeless message. no matter how far technology advances. The universe is larger than our minds. Some secrets reveal themselves only when we learn to be humble. More than 10 years have passed since the night MH370 lifted into the dark. Time can soften memory, but it cannot erase the question still hanging in the air: what really happened? Some say silence is the clearest answer. In this case, silence only thickens the clouds. Today, when you board a modern aircraft, settle into a comfortable seat, and glance at the deep blue outside, you may notice something: tracking systems, radar, satellites, all strengthened by lessons from this event. Certain functions are now designed to remain active in any situation. Yet amid all progress lies a space nothing can fill, the space in the hearts of those still waiting. In Malaysia, a wall bears the words, "Remember MH370. Hundreds of photos, letters, and prayers overlap across its surface. An elderly woman holds a picture of her son, gazes into the distance, and says, "I don't know where you are, but if you can hear me, know that I am still waiting." In Beijing, a boy who was 6 in 2014 is now grown. Each year he writes the same line: "I still believe that one day I will welcome my parents at the airport." Simple words, holding a decade of fragile hope. Is there any reason to keep searching? Someone asks. Yes, not only for answers, but because memory has a duty. No one should be forgotten in the open sky. Sometimes we search not just to recover what is lost, but to recover our faith that the world can still be understood, if only a little. As one scientist said, MH370 is not only a missing flight, it is a mirror showing the limits of our intellect. We once thought every question had an answer, every signal a log, every oddity a data-based explanation. Yet among the numbers lives something we cannot quantify: the randomness of fate. Perhaps that is why this story lingers. Some choose science, believing MH370 rests on the ocean floor, where sunlight never reaches. Some choose the spiritual, believing they exist somewhere else, in a parallel calm where time stands still. Others believe the truth will surface when the moment is right. Whatever one believes, a common feeling persists: respect for what lies beyond our grasp. If one day the aircraft is found, the world may not react as loudly as it once would have. There may be only quiet, a gentler, fuller quiet, because in the end, the quest is not about curiosity. It is about bringing people home and closing a journey left unfinished. This story entered history not only for its mystery, but for what it reminded us about ourselves, our smallness. Beneath the open sky and above an endless sea, surrounded by technologies we trust, a single instant can unravel everything. In that instant we remember, nothing is absolutely secure, and none of us knows everything. Somewhere out there, beneath the waves, the pieces of MH370 may lie, coated in sea growth, silently marking the passage of time. In the faint glow of deep-sea life, there might still be rows of seats, windows, the traces of a journey paused. No sound, no lights, only water and memory. Listen closely, and you might hear something, a soft heartbeat of time. As if MH370 were sending a message: we never truly vanished. We are simply somewhere else. And maybe, one night beneath a quiet sky, as you look up at the stars, you'll sense a small point of light moving very high and far, gliding through the darkness without a sound, without a trace. Perhaps it is a satellite, or perhaps it is MH370, still flying, quietly, toward the sunrise of a world we do not yet understand. Good night, Malaysian 370. Those words were spoken more than a decade ago. Perhaps they still drift in the air, part greeting, part farewell, and a reminder that this universe holds more than we can imagine. Thank you for listening. If you have any thoughts or new information about Flight MH370, please share them in the comments below. We truly appreciate your insight and perspective. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next videos from Enigmatic Chronicles. Thank you.